ISKCON by Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda ki, Ekanta Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, their most merciful Lord Shri Kunja ki, Sri Jagannath Shri Baladev Subhadra ki, Shri Nathaji Shri Gopal ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Nitai Gopal. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the Lord Spirit, Shri Guru, Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Dharam Chaiva Narottamam.
Dharam Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Tiraya.
Tato Jayam Tiraya.
Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu.
Nastapráyashu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki
Bhagavati Naistiki
reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 43. The chapter is entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely. Chira Vasa Niraharo Chira Vasa Niraharo Bada Van Mukta Murdaja Bhagavan Mukta Murdaja Darsaya Atmano Rupam Darsaya Atmano Rupam Jaromata Pisachavat Padomata Pisachavat Anavekshamano Niragad Anavekshamano Niragad Ashrinvan Badhiro Yata Ashrinvan Badhiro Yata Chiravasa Niraharo Chiravasa Niraharo Padamukvan Mukta Murdaja Balavan Mukta Murdaja Darsayan Atmanorupam Darsayan Atmanorupam Jadonmata Pisachavad Janto Jadonmata Pisachavad Anavikshamo Nirdad Anavikshamo Nirdad Ashrinvan Bhadirohita Ashrinvan Bhadirohita
Chiravasa Niraharo
Chiravasa Niraharo Bhagavan Mukta Murdaja Darsayan Atmanorupam Janamata Pisachavad Anavekshamano Niragad Ashrinvan Bhagirohita Chiravasa Niraharo Balavira Vamukta Muraja Dursayan Atmanorupam Jaramata Pasatava Anavekshamano Niragad Ashrinvan Bhagirohita Chiravasa accepted torn clothing. Nirahara gave up all solid foodstuff. Badava stopped talking. Murdhaja untied his hair. Darsayan began to show Atmana of himself. Rupam bodily features. Jada inert. Unmata mad. Pisachavat just like an urchin. Anavekshamana without waiting for. Nirgat was situated. Ashrinvan without hearing. Badhira,
Badhira,
just like a deaf man.
just like a deaf man.
Yata, as if.
As if.
Chiravasa niraharo bharavan damulata darsayat manorupam jagan mata pisachava enalaksamano nirga ashrinvandadiro yata. Translation. In purport by His Divine Grace of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda. After that, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira dressed himself in torn clothing, gave up eating all solid foods, voluntarily became dumb, and let his hair hang loose. All this combined to make him look like an urchin or a madman with no occupation. He did not depend on his brothers for anything, and just like a deaf man, he heard nothing. Report. Thus, being freed from all external affairs, he had nothing to do with imperial life or family prestige. And for all practical purposes, he posed himself exactly like an inner mad urchin, and did not speak of material affairs. He had no dependence on his brothers, who had all along been helping him. This stage of complete independence from everything is also called the purified stage, fearlessness. Om Gyananandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshi Srimalitame Tasmai Shri. Yudhiṣṭhira is revealing his full trust and faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take care of him and his body, although he is appearing to be neglecting it altogether. When one comes to this stage of renunciation, he no longer puts his mind into the senses or the satisfaction of the senses, but he sets his mind to concentrate upon the person of Kṛṣṇa. And thereby, where Kṛṣṇa is, then the soul, by natural attraction, will go to be with Kṛṣṇa. We're constantly living our lives in service to Kṛṣṇa at the end of this life, and he's giving us understanding of how all of his associates return to him. I was realizing a couple of days ago, for the most part, in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, we accredit these spiritual paths as paths that people are on according to time and circumstance because of their own mentality. God gives to them a form of religion that they can at least follow for the benefit of karma, developing society like that. But the fact that they have not yet received the Maha Mantra means they're totally lacking in this understanding that Yudhiṣṭhira is displaying here about now when he's concentrating his mind on Kṛṣṇa and on leaving the material body. And this is what is missing in the societies of the world, we could say, for the most part. Mostly people are looking to the last days of their life being spent either in a hospital, nursing home, or maybe taking a vacation in a world tour somewhere or something of that nature. Only creating by the consciousness that they develop in those circumstances under normal situations, the desire to want to return to the same kind of functions that they're now experiencing, with people taking care of them and these kinds of things, and then in their minds, for this to be cut off is in their minds the greatest fear they have. But here Yudhiṣṭhira is revealing his fearlessness and his end of his life in the last days, revealing how nothing is important to him in this world whatsoever, only thinking about Kṛṣṇa. So, these other paths that do not have this understanding, we have to realize, along with the understanding of the Dharma for the age, comes the understanding that it has the ability. Unlike all these other paths, they're all promising heaven. And that's the extent of the knowledge that's being given to them by their own gurus, because their gurus were not yet given the Dharma for the age. This Dharma was given by the most recent incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he has come more or less to update us, human beings, on what he wants us to take part in for as a means of going back to Godhead. So we can say Kṛṣṇa comes at the beginning to establish each of the yugas, but in so doing he's also establishing the end of the previous yuga. But now in this Kali Yuga, even though we are the most fallen, Kṛṣṇa is enabling us to preserve all the other forms of Dharma that were given in all the other ages. So in Satya Yuga, this form of meditation is given, and those practitioners of meditation in that age are born with bodies that enable them to live for up to 100,000 years. Now, we are not in those kinds of bodies right now, but we know even that is a flash compared to the eternity that awaits all the living entities who are serving the Supreme Person on this planet now, directly through contact with the spiritual master, who is in direct contact with his spiritual master. It goes all the way back to the Supreme Person originating, the original Adi Ishvara, the original controller. He's the original Guru, Adi Purush, the original power of all that controls everything. So, with him bringing the Dharma for the age, he also empowers us with the knowledge, giving us full access to the totality of Bhagavatam. Access to a knowledge that is non-existent in all these other paths. See, all these other paths, for the most part, the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Christians, they're all using one book, the Bible. And the Jewish people, they also use the same Bible. They are using what is called the Old Testament, which is said to be a treatise between God and man, giving them an understanding how to perform sacrifices according to time and circumstance. But we understand from the Vedas that those circumstances that were prominent on the earth during the time when sacrifices were being made, to recognize that the mantras being used were spoken correctly, effectively. The living entity, sometimes in the form of a horse, they could be in different forms, but they would get a new body when their body was put through the fire. And so the fire of sacrifice that is brought down from the mantras, by the mantras, originating as Agni. Fire is a personality, and the form he is manifesting in this world is for a particular function. He is also controlled by karma. Karma controls him to fulfill the purposes of Krishna's laws. And he's also being engaged in fire sacrifice. And it is by the determination of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his acceptance of the life of the one doing the mantra, chanting the mantra. So if the mantra is spoken properly, Krishna gives life to the creature that is offered in the sacrifice by his glance. So these stories reveal to us abilities that the Supreme Person has beyond our own capabilities. And what he is explaining to us in all of these features of his own personality, that we also have aspects of his personality to a certain degree. And these degrees are all brought out in the 5,000-year-old psychology book written by Śrīla Prabhupāda, and it reveals in there, available online from the Vedabase.io, I believe it is. It is revealed in there what kind of relationships human beings should be having with one another. When these guidelines are given at a very young age, it very much helps in the development of the consciousness of the person who then, by seeing the value system revealed in these teachings and the value revealed in the writing of the Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, we see the value of relationships and how important relationships are for the development of the soul, the psyche of the soul, to become completed and to understand its own nature. And so all these qualities that we see in human beings as desirable, kindness, mercy, gentleness, meekness, wisdom, understanding, these kinds of qualities in a human being, they're not restricted to religious people. These teachings are given for all souls. See, what most of society is blinded by in regards to our relationship to them is that they think we're a religion like the rest of the religions, but we're not. We are a science that God has given to humankind that can be applied to any practice of life, any profession. this constant hearing, the sound created by the soul who is adherent to the teachings of the source of all, the experience will be such that they will understand the difference between spiritual consciousness and material consciousness. If our minds are limited to the mundane, our experience will be limited to the mundane. So everything that is in this world, we will be limited to. And nothing outside the realm considered reality. Everything that we are seeing, however, as much as it is appearing as real to us, because of its temporary nature, and is constantly changing, it is not the substance of reality. Truth is the substance of reality. And that truth that is everlasting is the substance of absolute truth. So we have truth that applies to the material world. Men are famous for making laws about the governing principles that exist within this universe. But better than just knowing the laws that exist is knowing where the laws come from. Because without the realization that all of these laws that are governing the events taking place in the universe are being moved by the forces of karma, which is being created by the consciousness of the living entities who are all engaged in the energies that karma is controlled by. So if you get on the railway to karma's land, if you are living in karma's land, then you will be controlled by karma's laws. So if you're functioning within the realm of the eternal truths of God, the original all, the statements being made in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in all of the Vedic teachings is that if you're serving the spiritual, eternal energy emanating from the Supreme Person, which is coming from within that body of his creative form, then he will, by the nature of that energy itself, it's like getting off the merry-go-round and getting on the solid ground. So this big world that we're living on is floating around in a universe that has the appearance to those who can see it in its entirety as being out in the jungle, growing from the lotus flower. So of the lotus, of the navel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there are beings living on the inside surface of this universe that have the ability to see that form of Mahavishnu, but they can only go out to the shore. And Mahavishnu grants Lord Brahma access. But now, what about us? Because the relationship being described by those who are at the foundation of the world when there was this big takeover by the demons, that access was restricted to Lord Brahma. But devotees now are gaining access to the same person. Kṛṣṇa is giving us access to him by this chanting. And it is through the hearing and the sound that we can create that we can understand his nature. As we speak Krishna's name, we reveal the relationship we're having with Krishna. Sorry. Why not be cramped? Can't move it. It's okay. Happens at night. When it happens at night, oh my God, terrible. Can't move. But when Krishna withdraws us from the material energy, it's a total removing of the effects that the material energy would all otherwise have upon us. So, it's like this thing that just happened to me. Things happen to our physical bodies. And to a great extent, our culture is made in such a way for the living entities who are taking part in its system are being deprived. All of the societies in the world are set up at their peak. We give them credit by calling them karmis for working within the karmakanda regulations. Though 90% of the people on the planet are not, maybe more. But with that in mind, the system of karmakanda is punishment and reward. And the only way to get away from that punishment is to stop performing the activities that cause the punishment. And see, with society set up the way that it is, built into the desire to gain something from an act performed for the benefit of another human being, it is in and of itself a tainting of the substance we're made of, which is pure love. We are made of God's own substance, of God's own body. As souls, we are eternal substance. And that eternal substance is the same makeup of the body of the Supreme Person, who is not having a soul, but is himself manifesting what the nature of the soul is in the form of Krishna when he comes. So his body is not made of flesh and blood. So just as we see, I was speaking earlier about how those living entities who are living in such a yuga, everything they are doing with the intent of hoping to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So with that act, and that conscious act, then it produces a completely different result. And the difference between night and day. And it will not be until society is able to allow the workings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by setting up within the society a system by which everyone can be totally satisfied. That's what this Krishna consciousness is meant to do. To give us the full realization of who we are, the substance we're made of, the eternal nature of the energy that we are, which has come from God's own mouth. He spoke us into the firstborn of this world, of the universe, rather. And in doing that, We came directly out of the body also, Brahma, into the body of others. So just as Kṛṣṇa, by speaking his name into the ear of Brahma, imparted all the living entities that would come into the universe thereafter, as Brahma produced bodies from his body, then they also carry souls for them to be able to give birth as well. That's how the universe was populated originally. Souls had the ability to produce life themselves and didn't require. You see, this separation from society that Yudhiṣṭhira is taking part in is revealing an aspect of the personality of its being able to realize the complete protection it has in service to the Supreme Personality of God. I lived in a cave for 2 years, and I went without using money for the most part of that time. And it's funny how, without bills, without rent to pay, I didn't even buy food. I didn't have to. By the preaching I was doing, people were reciprocating, and they would give me when it was time that I needed something. It would be provided. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when you remove yourself from the system, the laws that are will carry you over your trust and faith in the powers that be, the supreme powers, because the supreme powers that are waiting for human beings to surrender to the supreme powers that be. But as long as they want to figure their own way out, they're going to be controlled by the laws of the material energy. We're controlled by the laws of the spiritual energy. We have 10 offenses that we avoid. And are reminded of these every day by reciting them, so that we avoid committing acts that cause reactions. These are not laws to make us restricted, but no laws that give us freedom. And that's where people are misunderstanding the guidance that comes from the Supreme Person as a form of guidance, rather than a form of punishment. So, in that regard, God and his laws are distinct. For God's laws are much like Yudhiṣṭhira himself is the incarnation of religion. And as such, he's the son of Yamaraj. As his son, he's revealing the perfection of religion in this taking of renunciation. And why renunciation is something to be valued is because then we come to a place where complete surrender brings total faith, total trust, and fearlessness is the thing. Because all these nagging thoughts in our mind is, am I going to have enough to eat tomorrow? Is there going to be a house over my head tomorrow? Am I going to get in a car accident? What's going to happen? We have all these fears built into the activities we're taking part in society. And then if we don't get enough of our own fear, then all we have to do is turn on the TV or the computer and look at somebody else's fears, if they have to suffer from it. News report. This person died that way, this person died that way, somebody got shot this way. It's the world of names, as Bhāgavatam describes. In all of us, in that world of names, we're going around and around and around in a circle, trying to find that everlasting satisfaction, what's going to give us once and for all that which we've been longing to experience. Every time somebody comes up with a new invention, we're all thinking, that's got to be the one that's going to make me more happy than anything I've ever had in my life. Huh? Finding fun and enjoyment. But when we come to know God, and then we come to value peace of mind, because without a peaceful mind, a contented mind, and we're not going to get a peaceful, contented mind without this fearlessness. And fearlessness doesn't come without realizing we don't need any of this stuff. We don't need anything in this world. There's only one person we need. But we come to find that person through those that have had contact with that person before us. Then eventually we will return as Yudhiṣṭhira is returning. These stories are given to us not that only somebody else can experience what is being experienced by these most exalted souls, but that so we may see the path before us that we are being called to, that we may also follow in those footsteps as well. This is the glorious nature of Bhagavatam, to help us to see what is available to us if we apply our energies now. The time will come, just like Yudhiṣṭhira, we won't need anything in this world. We will have Kṛṣṇa so personally as a relationship, conversations going on constantly with these most elevated souls. At any time, Śrīla Prabhupāda asked questions that were in regards to his own, being in place here as the authority. We take him a moment just to pause and ask Kṛṣṇa, and Kṛṣṇa would give him the answer immediately. One time a boy, he was learning that the Guru knows everything. Right? Guru knows everything. But Guru says the rope is a snake, then it's a snake. So he said, okay, so Prabhupada, if Guru knows anything, how many windows are there in the Empire State Building? Immediately, Śrīla Prabhupāda said, how many drops of water are there in the illusion? So, see, it's revealing to us that which we are believing to be reality. All of these buildings are imaginations of men's minds that they have created for their own pleasure, and they're going to be destroyed. What Kṛṣṇa establishes lasts forever. So that's what this Maha Mantra given to us is for. It's for forever. You will not find in this world substance of gifts that will last forever, but that which is coming and emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of qualities of personality. That which you reflect from your own personality, that you get from activity, from taking part in activity of devotional service, bhakti. That action that you're engaged in, being of such a spiritual nature, is revealing, you may not know it, but it's revealing from you taking part in that act, Krishna's own spiritual energy. And it's a part that becomes a part of your personality. The specific way you make a garment, the specific way you cook rice, the specific way you blend a drink for Kṛṣṇa. He knows you by every specific thing, the details of your life, individually to anyone else. Kṛṣṇa knows each and every living entity exactly as they are, and every tiny detail about them, every tiny detail about us, because he's sharing his life with us, knows every thought we've had, and he's with us every moment. But what we really need to realize is why Kṛṣṇa comes to deliver us. And if we follow the footsteps of Yudhiṣṭhira Mahārāja, listening to Kṛṣṇa's words, and obtaining the mercy from Kṛṣṇa to be able to abide in those regulative principles that keep us solid in that seva, that bhakti, that gives us realization of the nature of Kṛṣṇa's personality. We work together with one another. It is Kṛṣṇa's personality because working in us, because I know myself, before I knew anything about Kṛṣṇa consciousness, the modes of material energy are totally controlling people in the world that are eating food of the flesh of animals that are themselves also fully controlled by the modes of material energy. And so they don't know their control. People are living without offering their food to Kṛṣṇa. That makes them under the bondage of the effects of that karma is going to cause them to experience. They can't stop it any other way except by surrender to Kṛṣṇa. And for the most part in society, everything we're experiencing is a result of all those karmic activities that have been going on since time immemorial. All these societies. And they've been engaging in forms of religion that do not give them total liberation. Gives them liberation from this world to gain entrance into the higher planetary systems. But nothing is being revealed on any other path that I've seen that even reveals a distinct difference between anything in this material universe versus everything outside, which is where the entrance into eternity begins. This universe is just a little tiny drop amongst billions and billions of universes that are all contained within the forces that are subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. And Kṛṣṇa is giving a perfect way for us to sing our way home back to God. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And he wants all of us to go back to God. This is prayer of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. We can read about this in Ekanta. And Śrīla Prabhupāda credits this prayer of his to being even more powerful than that which leads Christians to Christ. Because as it is said by Christ's words, those who believe on him will be able to go to the dwelling that he goes, which again is the heavenly dwelling. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira's prayer was that he could take the suffering upon himself of everyone in the entire universe, whether they believed on him or not. So this is the superiority of a prayer by a soul whose vision is being opened, just as our visions, our minds, our consciousness can be opened to the eternalness and the nature of the spiritual realm that Kṛṣṇa is calling us to. And why should we know that? Because it's an impetus It's an impetus. They're all working for nothing, who are not working for the eternal benefit of the spiritual world. But we don't work for the eternal benefit of the spiritual world, to gain the benefit of the spiritual world. We work for the benefit of Kṛṣṇa, and automatically the spiritual world comes. So we don't even see, just like in the material world, we're looking at the bills as a problem. I'm speaking of, if we're not using money, then bills are not a problem, right? Similarly, in the spiritual world, once you're dwelling in that Vaikuntha realm, there's no questions in your mind of whether you're going to make it, or whether you committed a mistake so bad that you couldn't make it in the spiritual world. No. When you're there, you're there. And so that faith in Kṛṣṇa that brought you there is what is keeping you with that constant communion. Christians talk about communion. I took Christian communion. You get baptized, and communion is an act of surrender to dying to your own will. This is what baptism is. You die to your own will, and then you're raised out of the water into life. Well, to recognize that act, once a week, they take what is called communion. So they take bread and wine, which is described by the one who gave them this to follow as being his body and his blood. And notice they're both vegetarian substances. But by the transformation of his offering, this is to them what we consider prashad. This is their form of making an offering to God. Once a week, remember, and the priest is the only one that can make that offering like that. He puts it before God, and then it's divided amongst all the people. Now, in some churches, they all drink from the same. They drink from the same big goblet. And some they pass out individual things. But that transformation is the key to what's happening when we take prashad, and they're not realizing that's supposed to be every meal. That's not a once-a-week observance. And so with that lack of understanding is the fact that they do not know that every meal is incurring a reaction by the fact that they are ending the life of these living beings who are manifesting in a form to be able to give up their lives for them, so that they can also manifest in a form to give up their lives for those that have given up their lives. It's a big endless circle. That's what reincarnation is all about. That's what the laws of karma is all about. And without knowing that, they have left a consciousness about God, that this is the only life there is. And there's a heaven and there's a hell. One of each. And they're both eternal. This is the Christian viewpoint of God in his all-loving way of conducting creation. And so, with the taking of these bodies, these dead bodies, and not having communion every day, then they are also re-establishing in their minds this consciousness that the animals have. Killing to eat, killing to eat, that's all they know. Because that's the nature of the bodies they were born into. So in effect, human beings are living using the human form to experience animal consciousness, basically. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And it ends there. And that's the extent of the experience. And love then an expression towards one another by the coming together of their fleshly bodies. Right? That's the way they're expressing their love for one another, which is how a mother shows her affection for her child or maybe like that. But as we see with Yudhiṣṭhira, there's something about love of God giving it a form of independence. Now, of course, the same way we don't get to the spiritual world by wanting to get to the spiritual world. We get to the spiritual world by simply following the instructions of Kṛṣṇa. And automatically, then the spiritual, we end up there. So similarly, we are developing this ability to conduct our life, to perform this activity with pure hearts, and automatically by that endeavor, the path is already made, the door is already being opened for our leaving these bodies. Kṛṣṇa is waiting for us at the end of this life to welcome us. And that's explained in Bhagavatam as well. That's why reading Bhagavatam is so important. See, some Christians, they get to a point of renunciation. But then they think of renunciation as, you don't have to go to church anymore, don't have to read the Bible anymore, don't have to associate with people. All these things to them become a form of renunciation. I do it on my own. I did it my way, right? But in effect, in Krishna consciousness, we see association as that which actually feeds and strengthens our ability to communicate with Kṛṣṇa, because with association, if you have 10 years experience with Kṛṣṇa, and I have 10 years experience with Kṛṣṇa, then combined we have 20. And both perspectives add to each other's. So all of your 10 years of experience that you share with me, that you've come to this point to gain, which is what you are sharing when you speak Kṛṣṇa's name, automatically contained in the recitation of that name is the value you have come to in your relationship with Kṛṣṇa to that point. So if that's pure love, 1/64th of a second is all that's required for your presence to liberate a soul. That's the power of the purity. Śrīla Prabhupāda says purity is the force, and that's how powerful it is. So, your 10 years given to me in the nature of the relationship you have with Kṛṣṇa when you speak Kṛṣṇa's name, then my 10 years given to you when I speak them, we're sharing. This is like if you have a bowl of rice, and I have a bowl of dal, and we both share. We may have the same amount for each other, but we're getting an advantage in the combination of the two that neither individually provides separately. So this is how association is as well. I get from you a viewpoint to aid my advancement because I'm open enough to hear what Kṛṣṇa is going to reveal to me from your spoken words that he has given you the experience of. That's the value of association that we find revealed in Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu. The soul getting this association is actually feeding itself, its own nature. The substance of Kṛṣṇa's pastimes is the nature of truth, and it's the real substance of the soul. So it's how we really do take food. We take food in the form of prasadam also, and if I keep talking, it'll be cold. So we just move on to prasadam from here. Any comments, any questions, any realizations? Jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Śrīla Prabhupāda.